Hey everybody, it's Book of Katherine. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to 2020. Yay! We made let me set this. Go. Yay! We made it to 2020. Woohoo! We made it through 2019. That's a big deal. That ain't a small thing. Anyone who survived 2019, well, that's all of us, I guess. So congratulations to you for making it through 2019. I applaud you through making it through 2019, 2018, 2017, and 2016, quite frankly, since the entire globalist empire decided to just ramp everything up for humanity in those 4 years or 3 years of living. It's been a living, you know what, for all of humanity. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. We're going to talk about 2020. So I did get to go to a Happy New Year Eve party. Thank you very, very much, because of all the work figuring out what's going on with my health and the work that happened in October, November, and in December. It culminated in me going in a vacation for the first time ever. Thank you to my supporters and donors. I could not have done that without you. My friends actually were able to make sure that I had places that I was able to get into in time at such a late date. And just like they helped me with my doctors, and then my supporters, you guys actually enabled me to actually go there despite all the medical bills. And so it was just, I had the support that I needed when I was there. It was a very difficult trip. But I actually did it, and actually then rested for a New Year's Eve. I stayed longer than I should have. I was supposed to stay 20 minutes. I stayed 40 minutes, and I have been paying for that ever since, which is why I'm getting this out to you so late. But anyway, so let's talk about 2020. And I could feel it in the room kind of when the New Year's Eve party was happening. There's like this hesitancy about what the 2020 is bringing. And no, I can see why, like with all the AstroTurf that's going on. If you know what AstroTurf is, that's the propaganda industry. And Cheryl Atkinson talks about it. If you haven't seen the video, you really need to see. Everyone on this planet needs to see. Everyone on this planet needs to see Cheryl Atkinson. She's an amazing journalist, ex-journalist. She left it, well, she's still a journalist, but she left. She was on ABC. Award-winning, Emmy-winning journalist back when the journalism was actually fact-checking and everything like that, which was more than 5 years ago. And she quit it when things changed. It's funny, Reason TV did a episode, and they actually said in the episode, they said, oh, the 2010s, when the gatekeepers died, the gatekeepers of news died. And I was like, are you kidding? I thought that was hysterical, because it's actually the exact opposite happened. The exact opposite happened. That's when all of the newspapers, that's when everything, whatever newspaper outlet wasn't bought yet, got bought. Whatever avenue of YouTube wasn't bought yet, that's when censorship went crazy. Remember the censorship sweeps on YouTube? Remember the censorship sweeps on things like Wix? How all of the blogs got shut down, all the websites got just deleted out of nowhere because, like, the owner's an Obama supporter, which is pretty much like a royal family, like, alignment with the monarchs of Europe. It is just, when you hear the 1%, that's what they're talking about, like the descendants of George III, the descendants of Pope. The descendants of popes, all those royal families still exist. Those are the people who are the 1%. When we hear the 1% of the 1%, just go ahead and watch the royal horse races. That's the people. They all the Shahs of Iran that own $200 billion of wealth. They're not listed on the Forbes wealthiest people. They list the little people who have like $40 billion to their names. They're not listing the actual wealthiest people. And that's what we've been learning. Me and my Twitter followers have been learning over 2019. I mean, I thought I learned a lot in 2018. Oh my gosh, that's the biggest thing this year for 2020. So I'm going to tell you what I think the global empire and the blaring horn is going to be telling us for 2020. And then what I think our responsibility is as global citizens, as they like to put it, as global citizens, what our responsibility is coming up in 2020. So in 2018, I said that our most powerful day is the day we get to vote. That's no joke. And I know that they have a lot of votes taken over. I know the unions are involved. I think the unions are starting to figure out that like they did things, they allowed themselves to be bought out for all these years. You see the things on things like Boardwalk Empire where the unions go ahead and they get easily bought. The problem is with that is that now the Supreme Court has ruled that unions cannot take a member's money anymore. So the union, if you are a member of a union and they're taking your dues by force, which is what they used to do, that's where all the union power came from. Unions actually brought more to politics than any corporation or business side. All these people would say evil capitalists. No, the evil capitalists are the unions. They robbed their people. If you were a teacher, they took your money. You couldn't say, I don't want to be a member of the union. You had to give part of your paycheck to the union, and then that union always gave it to a Democrat. And the Democrats are sitting there taking away your freedom of religion. They're sitting there they're actually banning publishers of churches. They're actually banning pastors and what they can say in their churches. When you start reading the Declaration of Independence, you start realizing that everything the Democrats are doing is literally everything King George III was doing to the 13 colonies. That's what the climate change agenda is. When you go through the climate change agenda, which I'm sad to say, like, we have lost China Uncensored and America Uncovered. That was my first video of 2020, was watching an America Uncovered video, and almost every fact in it was incorrect. And the reason is that the fake news headlines have gotten so much worse. I mean, it used to be where half the headline would be right in a little bit of truth, and then it would be from a narrative perspective. Now it's completely false, like just completely false narratives. For example, one of the headlines that they put out was saying that, the Trump team said that we're getting out of climate change, but we're not actually going to leave the Paris Climate Agreement until after the election in 2020, the day after the 2020 election in November. That's when we're leaving the climate change agreement. And I'm like, right. The thing that regulated America. And then later on in the actual episode, it said, and besides, these emissions controls are really decided at the state and local level anyway. So it doesn't really have anything to do with this. And I was like, that's exactly what the Paris Climate Accord is. It does regulate at the federal, state, and local level. That's what the Paris Climate Accord is. That's what the Rio Agreement is. That is what the Kyoto Agreement is. All of those regulated at the state, federal, and local level. That's the point of Agenda 21, is that these people over in Europe, and if you go ahead and start looking at it, it's not just John Kerry. It's not just Germany and BASF that are at these meetings. It's Prince Harry. It's Prince Charles. And it's the Queen of England. And it's the Queens of Belgium. And the Queens of Sweden. Did you know that Sweden taxes its people at 50% of their income? 50. For doing what? That's right, because their DNA says that they have the right to rule. It says, and this is one of the things that we have been learning, we've been learning that the Pope and the monarchies believe that God only speaks through the Catholic doctrine before the Reformation. The Catholic doctrine says that God only speaks to popes and monarchs. And so only popes and monarchs can govern the people, because God doesn't speak to anyone but popes and monarchs. So the citizenry isn't connected to God. He doesn't know God's will for the land. That's why you look at the Queen's crest or Prince Charles' crest, and it says, like this Mon Dieu, whatever, and it says, God's right. By God's right, we rule. And then the American Revolution came around with the Protestantism, and they said, oh, no, we actually read the Bible, and in the Bible it says the Holy Ghost comes down and talks to us, and by prayer we can talk directly to God. That was the whole point of this Jesus Christ Messiah guy coming down, was so that we could go ahead and have the Garden of Eden again and talk directly to God. And if we can talk directly to God, we can figure out God's will for our lives and for this land, and therefore we can govern ourselves. So get the heck out, King Henry, King Elizabeth. And, it's interesting because Queen Elizabeth is actually the one who founded the East Indian Trading Company, the one that did the slaving ships. It's very interesting how they keep saying capitalists and private corporations, and when you realize that it's actually the monarchs that are responsible for all the slaving, including the Middle Eastern ones. And you can go ahead and say it's the Jews that did it. Of course the Jews did it. They're the bankers for all these royal families. They're the go-between between the popes and the royal families. The Jewish families are the bankers, and they brag about it on their websites. I've posted on Twitter, on the Rothschild websites, they're bragging about how when the people came up with the Reformation, they rose up and they started their parliaments and they started saying, let's get our taxes back, let's get our wealth back. Whatever we earn on the land, we should keep to ourselves. If we actually earn money on the land, this is our land. If we grow food, we should have the wealth of that. And all King William and all these people, they had taxed the people to death, had all the wealth, and the people were like, we want that wealth back. And the Rothschilds were bragging about how they were like, well, we actually just kept the wealth. William went over here, gave all our wealth to us for safekeeping. And that's what these Jewish families did for all the royal monarchs, is they kept all the people's wealth, just took all the banking wealth of the people as the legislative hid it until it was safe for the monarch to come out. And then the monarchies came out again and they got the wealth back. And so all these people, it's amazing to me. I'm like, it's not socialism. It's just going back to serfs and monarchs. And if you look at the Nazi platform, that's all it is. It's just the people have no rights. And the people who are destined to be with DNA, with the special DNA, they were destined to rule. And I can't believe that everyone in Britain's just sitting there going like, we've got a monarch, that's okay. And how dare anyone tell us that we learned with Manifest Destiny, by the way, we learned that Manifest Destiny in America, we've been told by little British headlines because they owned our schools, right? We found out that Manifest Destiny, oh no! Do you know why we founded California in 1850? It's because Queen Victoria and the British... Did you know all of Canada were British colonies that used slaving for trade? And they were going after the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington. They were moving their colonies that way. And America was trying to get over there because they didn't want slaving to become the way. They were like, we're a Christian nation. We don't think that we should, in the Bible, created equal. Our Constitution says created equal. And there was a race between Britain, who said, no, God's right to rule, upper class versus lower class. And now we have a nation today in our headlines that says upper class and lower class is cool instead of created equal. And I went to DC and I had to be treated like a lower class citizen by all the citizenry there that's working federal jobs that make 99% more than all the bankers. Federal jobs. Do you know any African American teachers? How many do you know? There are plenty of African American preachers, pastors. Have you ever seen a poor African American family on Dr. Phil? I was listening to Kanye West stories before he made it, and he had rolled his Escalade. That's how his jaw was kind of... He rolled his Escalade. Do you know any white kids that have an Escalade at the age of like 18? Is that the lifestyle they're living in New Jersey? The white kids? No, the white kids have open source. They've been taught by the headlines, by the Queen of England, because they are the Protestant kids. They've been taught, oh, no, go ahead and give away your labor for free. If I hear one more software engineer tell me, oh no, I can't go ahead and make any money on this, I have to become known as a cool coder because making money on it would be seen as being an evil capitalist. If I hear that one more time, I haven't heard of any other industry. It is only industries that are actually aligned with Caucasians where it's like give it away for free. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about YouTube. YouTube is literally an industry where it says buy. Spend on a Canon camera, spend on this, and take about 10 years of getting known and getting a thing before you can make any money. And then you find out, someone finally tells you that on YouTube, you can't make any money unless you have sponsorships. Unless you sell out and they give you a script and you have to be basically a commercial seller. That's what you do. You sell things for other people. And even then, you don't break even. You are a slave. And they have somehow sold you on the idea that if you go to the DMV coming straight out of high school and you immediately make a profit, that somehow you're an evil capitalist because you're interested in profits. It's amazing to me. Amazing to me. Go to DC. Go to DC. DC is the wealthiest county in America. And look, Maryland. And look at what the demographics are. It ain't white. It ain't white. The most powerful lobby in America ain't the white lobby. These census numbers, we have been played out there. So this year, they've been ramping us up. This is my prediction. My prediction is that 2020 is going to be the roaring 20s. I think they're going to say, because we have now, through Trump, had a big boom in the economy, $5,000 on average per family gone up. They're going to say this is the roaring 20s. Everything's great. And so you should nominate Tulsi Gabbard or the Democrats or whatever. Just be happy. Everything be happy and celebrate like Boardwalk Empire. Because the roaring 20s is when Hitler came up. That was the progressive era when we went ahead and put out movies about going ahead and sterilizing women. Sterilizing them based on their color, based on their race, and based on whether they were slow or not. And we still have that in states like California. They're still sterilizing women. And it ain't conservatives who are pushing it. The Roaring Twenties is a label given by the Hitler progressives that are still doing the Nobel Prize. And guess who is at those Nobel Peace Prize? It's royals. Royal monarchs. This is what I challenge you as they say everything's getting better. I want to ask you, our money may be up, but our debt has never been greater. Our wealth gap has never been greater. The British royals have come after using German industries, have come after America, because America is the one country that's gotten away. I went ahead and looked into it. South Africa, you think you're free? You're freaking not free. I found out. I looked into it. 30 years after you declared yourself an independent constitution, look onto your Wikipedia page. It mourns the day you left it. It keeps talking about how awful it was. How dare you have left the monarchy? And 30 years later, you actually voted yourself back into the Commonwealth, back under the crown of the monarchy. You should go ahead and look at how many places are back under the Commonwealth, which means you're back underneath what's called the Dominion of the Crown. That includes Canada. So Venezuela has BASF, and guess what? Canada has BASF. And that includes, by the way, I just found out the Ballroom Dance World Dance Sport Federation, founded in 1957 in Germany, right after United Nations got its nice little army. The peacekeepers with the guns. You know, the United Nations that was designed by Hitler's forces. The guy that used to do the gold bullion teeth of the Jews and melted them down for his fortune. That guy who created it, designed the United Nations. They put that into effect. The United Nations actually says the years, go ahead onto the United Nations websites. They actually say 1941 to 1945 were the years of developing the United Nations. They don't call that World War II. They say this was the years of development for the United Nations. So we've got the World Dance Sport founded in Germany. That's why even though America created swing music, swing dances, and were winning all of the competitions, Germany actually had the competitions take a year off and they redesigned the swing dances. Came out with jive that looks like horses dancing around. Completely like a Latin dance so that only international, which means European and German dancers would win it. Literally, even though Americans actually created swing music and created swing dancing, but can't have any black people win anything in Germany. Go ahead and see how many black ballroom dancers there are. Nope. See how many American ballroom dance competitions there are. Nope. White power. And isn't it interesting when you look in Hollywood today, how many Mormons are the dancers if you see a white dancer with blue eyes? They just happen to be raised Mormon. You want to look into Mormon history and Mormon culture and Mormon teachings about black people? My challenge to you is this. Elect people who, when you ask them, hey, if I dig into my land and I strike gold, can I make the money off that, or does it have to be given up to the public? Do I have to alert my city and town and see if they're okay with me digging on my land? Do I have to check with the public good or a conservancy agency? Or if I bought my land and I strike it rich on my land, am I allowed to dig on my land and make freaking money off of it? Or do I need to check with Queen Elizabeth II, the monarch of Europe, the German heir to the throne, linked with Belgium. You know, Belgium, who created the Congo in the early 1900s. No one mentions that little one. You know, the Belgians who own all the alcohol in the world. New form of slavery. We have a lot to get free this year. That person who you elect this year better say yes. Everything you vote for this year needs to be anti-climate change. And that climate change agenda, unlike what America Uncovered told you, it is not about emissions. It covers 17 areas of your life, including culture. Do you know what that means? They do word choices for you. When they say what the safe words are, the monarchy at those climate change and Paris Accord things that Trump got us out of, they had a list of safe words that are published for your librarians at UNESCO and in your schools. That's where it's decided what the positive and negative word choices of what we're going to regulate out free speech, because Americanism and the idea of free speech, oh my God, if you read the Declaration of Independence, it's literally, climate change is literally the destruction of the Constitution. It goes against every one of the Bill of Rights. It's actually designed to kill the Bill of Rights and return us to a global slave state where we all answer to the Queen, which is why the Queen had a lovely announcement to the world this year. And they didn't publish the president. And I can't figure out if that's because the president actually said that it had to do with the birth of Christ, where Christians celebrate the birth of Christ, and they actually showed that there was a nativity in the White House. Didn't see any of those pictures online, but I was like, bravo, okay, there was a nativity there's an acknowledgement. There is an actual nativity in the White House. Bravo to the White House that there's an acknowledgement of that. Our challenge this year, I mean, my challenge, one of the things that I'm really going to be doing is I really, really am going to be trying to read like the Bible, what I've been told the Bible says, and then what it actually says. And I'm realizing how much of our country, when I went to DC, one of the biggest things I learned in DC and coming back, is how I found out, biggest numero uno thing I learned in DC, right as I left my hotel, my concierge recommended, they said, you can go see the rooftop. The rooftop was open on Christmas and we didn't know about it. And they were like, you missed out on the roof. And we were like, what? They said, yeah, we open it like once a year, you can go up. And so they said, we'll allow you to go up. We went up to the top and I found out that the White House is right in line with the Washington Monument and the Jefferson Memorial, which means the entire DC is built in a cross. Not only that, but the Washington Monument is at this little dip and has a surrounding circle of flags, like a crown of crowns, and this big Washington Monument pointing to the sky, which means we don't have a monarch. We have a cross, and at the center of the cross is a crown of thorns of Christ, and it's pointing skyward, and we go, we don't have a monarch, we're under God. And I finally understood what under God meant, and I started digging after I saw that, and I found out that John Quincy Adams, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, I found out more about what the Jefferson Memorial says. It's all over the place. I found out the Jefferson Memorial, that big pond there, it used to be smaller. It used to be 2 little ponds. It's interesting the DC elite have made it a bigger pond so you can't access it, because the Jefferson Memorial talks about God, 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 and how much that was intricately linked to the Declaration of Independence. John Quincy Adams actually said the Declaration of Independence was actually based on the tenets of Christianity. And I was like, well, I know about created equal. What other tenets of Christianity are there? It was based on the Savior. I was like, yeah, Savior? I know we've been learning about Messiah. And I'm like, what's going on? And then it said Ben Franklin was like, we prayed daily multiple times a day while we were writing the Declaration of Independence. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, what's been hidden from us? So I feel like I have a lot to learn that I need to dig into to get anywhere near our freedoms restored and our rights restored. Anything like that, because now I know that the entire climate change agenda is just 17 ways of removing our rights and undoing the Bill of Rights in this country on a state and local level using climate change. And let me tell you, Trump can only do so much on a federal level. It's our job to elect people this year, not just in the Senate and the representatives, but on the state and local level. They're taking away, I know in my own state, I was just like, I've lost a ton of rights in my state just in the time Trump's been in office, because we're just like, oh, Trump, we're getting freedoms back, but our state and local officials are doing the climate change thing because it's nice and easy to do. And so I'm sitting there watching the World Dance Federation put its Asia office in China. I'm like, oh, we're at the Tiananmen Square where they run you down with tanks. You're putting a dance, a ballroom dance. And so I looked into it. I was like, oh, because it was founded in Germany. Oh, that's right. And that's why you won't find any American winning ever. And when Americans won, they actually stopped it for a year and changed the dances. They don't hire American judges. I mean, even ballroom dancing is designed to take out America. And why is that? Because America is the one anti-slave movement in the world existing right now. And we have to back these Bill of Rights as much as we can. And what we can do in our own personal lives is get out of debt. And so that's my challenge to myself, and my challenge to you this year is to get out of debt. And I've had to do this with my husband in the past, when I had to pay off my business loan and things like that. They all say, oh, things are so great, we're making so much more money. But the thing is that we are in way more debt. Here's what I want to say is we're not leaving two things. We are no longer leaving an inheritance to our kids. We're no longer leaving 3 houses to our kids. Our grandparents are doing that. Do you know why that is? Our grandparents grew up when there was no minimum wage. So we need to get rid of all minimum wages, number one. Imagine you would start a business if you didn't have to pay the kid next door $15 an hour, wouldn't you? How many businesses would you start? How much more service would your local restaurant have if they could pay someone $5 an hour, if they could pay their sister, their cousin, their aunt $5 an hour to help just to get them by just a little bit or whatever? Wouldn't it be nice to have a babysitter again at $4 an hour? Anything. It would be nice just to get people, anyone should be able to set the market rate. But everyone that has 3 houses grew up in a time where there was no minimum wage. Numero uno. Number 2, have you noticed that all of America is an environmentalist park? It's all owned by the Queen of England. It's all owned by the UN. And she controls that. They're going through Africa right now. They've got this United for Wildlife thing that Prince Harry and Prince William won. And they just go through and they're just regulating out everything. And you know what? They're not targeting the places. I know the places. I have friends in Africa. I know the places where wildlife is hurt the most. They're not going to those countries. They're going to the most mineral-rich countries. And I found out that our places that are locked down the most in America, oh my gosh, honey, they're the areas that have the most mineral-rich resources. They've locked them down. And right now, New York, the state of New York, is paying 50% more in energy costs than they could be if they would just allow them to drill the land and mine the oil that they have. But oh no. When I went to New York in order to go to Rochester, New York, I went to one of their stops, one of their rest stops, and they were running hot water continuously. It automatically started at hot water, and everyone was getting hot water. Everyone in October, they were all getting hot water. Do you know what kind of heating bill that runs at a public rest stop? What kind of heating bill that runs up that goes on the taxpayer? And that means whatever energy source they've got it with, that's why they say that's one of the things on the climate change thing is energy. And you can tell they sell off your energy. It used to be a public utility energy. And then these people start selling it off to the international investors, to the royal investors, BASF, and to the Iran and everything like that, you guys. So we need to get in people. People need to start running. They need to start running for office. And you need to hire people that do not look like they are Catholic, private school, anything like that they are not at all. They go online and look up people. I'll try and hook something up right here. Go online and look at people like the East Coast rough people that teach you how to do a bag of leaves and stuff a bag of leaves, or teach you how to actually wrap up an electrical cord. I taught you how to install a shelf. Those are the type of people we need in office. They know how to get a job done and balance a budget sheet. That's who we need in office. People who are not corruptible and just want to take care of their town. Did you know we had a system designed not even to have police? I learned that. We're not even supposed to have police. That's why they said we're allowed to have our own arms. We're supposed to be able to bear arms and have self-defense, because if anyone came onto your land, try to take it, you could defend your own land. And then Minutemen, if someone came after your city, you could just have the people around you had your own guns and you defended your city. You're not supposed to have a police force. That's why there were no taxes until 100 years ago, when what Hitler called the Roaring Twenties came, progressives came along, and they jacked the freaking taxes sky high. That was when Hitler got big and Jews started going into concentration camps. The Roaring Twenties 100 years ago is when the people lost their rights across the world. In China, in Russia, deaths were sky high, both from smoking and from concentration camps. It wasn't the Roaring 20s. We need to redefine the Roaring 20s as the rebirth of freedom. We need to have rebirth of freedom. And I'm learning the only way we can do that is if we study the Declaration of Independence. Because I learned this. I went to the church across the street. I actually did that on Christmas. There was a church right across the street, and we saw people going in and they needed to clean our room. And I was like, why don't we go there? I can't remember the last time I've been to church. I think I must have been a teenager. My husband and I were like, all right, found out this is called the President's Church. St. John's Church, President's. But it was supposed to be an Episcopalian, like it was supposed to be a Protestant church. But I'm sitting there going through it and I know the whole thing. I recognize all of it. My husband was just mute through the whole thing, but I was like, oh, I understand all this. I know all the sayings. And I'm like, I thought this was a Protestant church. I know all this from being raised Catholic. Everything looks Catholic. And I'm like, they're doing all the Catholic thing. I thought I'm so confused. And then it literally says in the thing, they're like, and we believe in the Holy Apostolic and Catholic Church. And I'm like, I'm so confused. I researched it when I got home. I found out that King Henry VIII, when he founded the Church of England, found out that, guess what? That means you get a legislative body if you make it Protestant. Then the people are able to rule themselves. And he was like, oh, backtrack. And he said, okay, we're actually going to call it the Church of England, but it's actually all the Catholic rules. And so they have a Catholic liturgy. And so that's why all the churches that survive in America today and are funded in America today do environmentalism. Go ahead and look at it. Look up the head of the Church of England. Look up the Archbishop of Canterbury. Guess what he did his first day in office? He went in 96 days to every single Church of England in the world, every single Episcopalian church. And when he was done doing that, he met with a high-level segment climate change meeting at the UN. And guess what he was before he was made Archbishop of Canterbury? He worked for the oil industry. There's only one thing you can do in 96 days and go to every single one. One of two things. You either hand out a hit list for all the kids, the little eco-terrorists at every single youth group in the churches, to hand out a list of places to hit for your competitors to BASF in the oil and mineral business, or to do payoffs. That's all you can do in 96 days to hit all the churches in the world. Do you know how many people are in the world? 35 million, 95 million? The Queen has one hell of an army with the Church of England. And this is right across the street from the White House. I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I'm ready to get out of debt. I'm ready to get out of debt from them. I'm ready to see what they're doing. I'm ready to see climate change. And I'm ready to vote. I'm so ready to vote. And when they tell me it's the Roaring 20s and they tell me the Roaring 20s are back and to be illegal and to be a bum, I know they just want me to be a slave again, because slaves and bums are the exact opposite of what they are. Queens with crowns. But guess what, baby? They were shocked when I walked in there wearing this that day. I actually just realized I wore this that day, and there were women there that were staying at my hotel. They were shocked that I was staying at their hotel, and they were shocked that I was wearing this scarf. I found out about the scarf afterward. I just got it at a thrift store right across here. Didn't know. I was just like, this is beautiful. I have to have this, right? Didn't know anything about the scarf. I just grabbed it. I just have good taste, because taste is not in your DNA. We're created equal. We're going to govern ourselves again, America. And for the rest of the world, go ahead and get the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and learn how to govern yourselves again too. Talk to President Donald Trump. The monarchy is going to come to you with many, many great promises, but never forget what their legacy is. They plundered Egypt, took all of their things. Look into the Museum of Great Britain. Look at the British Museum and see how many relics they've taken and how many they don't return. America has relics, but we traded for ours and paid for ours, not Britain. And the Queen hasn't let go of any of hers despite all the requests. She just stays quiet when they request, and then she puts on a royal exhibit and opens it wearing a freaking crown. How dare they? You should see how many things of Egypt just stacked up. So many stacks of royal relics of Egypt in gold, just stack. So many sarcophagi from Egypt. Check out the British Museum. How dare they question the Met Museum, anything in America, when the British Museum is sitting there drenched in all they've plundered across the world. And it started with Rome, little Rome, Germany, and Great Britain. It's straight out of Revelations 12 and 13. The dragon, the beast, and the red. All three. It's like the little triad to go against the Trinity. It's amazing how they mirror each other. But from the seashore came something from the water. Seashore of Denmark came something from the water. We've been learning that Germany purchased Great Britain with George I. Isn't that interesting? And it's been a German throne ever since. Ever since. Check the bloodlines of Queen Victoria. There is so much freedom in knowledge, and they have hidden it for so long. 2020 is going to be an amazing year. It's going to be a rebirth of freedom if we are brave enough to elect people like ourselves and not believe the lie that we have to elect people that are different from us. We have to believe that we can rule ourselves. That's a revolution worth fighting for. Peace out. And one last thing. It's not materialistic to want to be out of debt and be free and not be a slave. That's not materialistic. It's not materialistic to want to look like you are worth something. It's not materialistic to look at something beautiful and wear it and to look like it equal to those who think they are above us. That is not materialistic. It is materialistic to think that things like this are worth more than a person's life. That's materialism, which is why I don't buy from China. Peace out, everybody. Love you. Enjoy these videos if I've had time to put them up. And Happy New Year. Happy 2020. And to everyone who is wonderfully and absolutely joyful at the Happy New Year party that I got to go to. I really, really enjoyed it. You absolutely made my year. And I'm going to cry. So anyway, I love you. And to the guy who was trying to warn me about standing up, you were right. I didn't catch that. It took me 2 days to realize that. You were right. I was wrong. Thank you.